The Eminence and Shadow, Episode 10, The Sacred Land, City of Deception. So yeah, first off, I just want to say that I was wrong in the last episode. There's not 12 Eminence and Shadow episodes, but apparently 20. So thanks for everyone who pointed that out to me. So yeah, that means we're halfway there. And while the last episode was no comedy, just completely serious, this episode is the opposite. This episode is just all-out comedy and a ton of fan service. So yeah, in this we get butt shots, crotch shots, boobs, and jiggling boobs at that. We get panty shopping, thongs, just, yeah, a lot of fan service. So we start off with Cid hiding from his sister. He mentions that the school was half destroyed, so everyone's going on summer break early. His sister tries to find him in his dorm, but he's hiding by clinging to the ceiling like Spider-Man. And he gets a letter from Alpha that there is going to be a annual goddess trial, and so he's going to go to Lindwurm, the city, to check it out. And then we start with our first fan service where we see Delta, my girl Delta. We see her sleeping and we get a crotch shot of her sleeping. And then there's like a funny gag where we see Gamma sleepwalking with a giant wrench for some reason. And she walks into a wall and she falls and her head hits a pillow and she just sleeps in the hallway. And then we get Epsilon. And I mentioned this in the previous episode, but we get the reveal of Epsilon's slime suit here, where basically Epsilon is very flat and has no hips or thighs or anything like that. And so we get a shot of Epsilon naked, and she uses her slime to make her butt look bigger and to make her boobs look bigger. And we get like a flashback story where Cid is talking to Epsilon about slime and how slime can change your appearance. It can change your very nature. And he's basically teaching her about this to use like in an advantage for like spy and espionage and stuff like that. But instead, as Cid is talking, she's looking out the window and she sees Beta and Beta's large breasts. And so Epsilon immediately thinks, oh, changing my nature as in I can make my boobs bigger by using the fake slime. So yeah, she uses the slime to make herself more curvy and bigger in certain areas. And then we get Beta writing one of her stories. And the story is actually kind of funny. The story is the story from, what was the name of the arc? I can't remember the name of the arc, but it's the one where Cid goes and he fights the teacher to save Alexia. But the funny thing is that Beta has replaced Alexia with herself. So Cid's basically saving Beta in her story. And of course we get fan service there because Beta is in nothing but black panties and a tank top. And she gets up and she changes outfits because she's going to go outside for a walk. And then we get another little gag where we see some of the other Shadow Guard members, and they look and they find Gamma passed out in the hallway, and they're just kind of like staring at her. And then we get a meeting between Epsilon and Beta, where Epsilon basically says that Cid has taken more notice of her, and she kind of lifts up her boobs, basically trying to show that Cid's paying attention to her because of her boobs. Even though Cid is not paying attention to her at all. But yeah, we basically get an argument between the two of them. And they're kind of talking about their boobs, and filling each other out and stuff like that. But that's all hidden because we see another Shadow Guard member playing with a cat. And as we see them playing with the cat, we get a close-up of Epsilon and Beta's boobs. And then Nu arrives. And as Nu arrives, we get another fan service shot where we see the camera just like zoomed in close on Nu's butt as she's walking to the group. And she basically talks about like the mission that they got to do. And then we immediately get the end of the gag where we see the Shadow Garden members picking up Gamma and taking her back to her room as she's still passed out. God, I love Gamma. She's so hilarious. And then we cut to more fan service because we get Iris and Alexia, and they're going shopping. And basically, the two of them are going to be going to Lindwurm. They're going to be going to the Sacred Lands for the goddess trial. And Alexia is going to have a meeting with the Archbishop, and she's going to be using this to look for any opportunities on the dark rumors and corruptions of like the missing orphans that's happening. And she wants to buy new outfits to make her seem like a helpless princess so that they won't suspect her. And Gamma arrives and shares with her some chocolates and stuff, and overhears that Alexia and Iris are going to Lindwurm. And so Gamma says, well, why don't I find some travel outfits for you? And then that's when Alexia asks if she can buy some outfits at casual wear. And she doesn't straight out admit it, but it's heavily hinted, and she almost gets it out, but then she corrects herself that Alexia is trying to find some kind of clothing or garments to impress Cid, because she has fallen in love with Cid and she wants to win him back and have them be a couple for real instead of just pretend. And so Gamma's like, oh, I think I know exactly what you want. I have just the thing for you. And she pulls back some curtains and reveals a bunch of thongs. And of course, Iris starts freaking out. She's like, oh my god, what is that? Like, it barely covers anything. It even reveals parts because some of it is see-through. And Gamma explains that these are thongs. Men love these. And Alexia goes and starts looking at the thongs. And of course, her sister's freaking out and telling her not to. And we get this like funny shot where Alexia is like pulling down one of the thongs, and she just like shoots her sister this look. It's like the same expression she uses when she draws her sword, but instead of drawing a sword, she's drawing down some thongs. And yeah, Alexia wants to try these out. And of course, Iris is freaking out and saying, no, you're not going to do that because, yeah, they're inappropriate. They barely cover anything. Some of them don't even cover anything because they're see-through. We get a scene where she grabs a thong and she takes it into the dressing room, but Iris follows her in there, and we get this weird, like almost incest moment. We basically get like a sexy, what's it called? Kabedon moment. You know, the moment, for anyone who doesn't know, the Kabedon is when it's usually a man and a woman, but in this case it's two women, where one of them is pressed against the wall and the other one's like one arm next to them and they're like leaning in close. So we get that moment. And yeah, Alexia is basically like her face right up to her sister and comes across very fanservice and sexual. But Alexia wants to buy this. Iris doesn't. Iris is like, enough, like it's clearly revealing your you know what. And Alexia's like, so I can't change your mind? And Iris is like, no. She's like, I see, but Iris, and she leans in close, gets her face like right up next to her sister, and she says, I refuse to be swayed any longer by words I don't need to hear. I want to value the words of those who will acknowledge me, despite my worthless insignificance. And she says, if you refuse to allow me a thong, Iris, then I will yield. I very much want to wear a thong to win him. I mean, I have a strong personal desire to wear a thong, but I will yield. So please answer me this, Iris. Do thongs really deserve your absolute and unwavering rejection? And as she's saying this, she like runs her finger through her thong and like snaps it. And Iris says, well, I wouldn't necessarily say absolute. And Alexia immediately backs up. She's like, all right, then I'll take this and I'll buy this. And I want a few more of these in different patterns. I also want to try out this G-string. So yeah, it's very, very sexual. Then we cut to a flashback where we see Princess Rose. And this is when the school building is on fire. She rushes into the infirmary where all the injured were taken. And as she's walking through, she spots Cid covered in bandages. And Cid recognizes her, and he's like, I'm dead. And he pretends to die again. But Princess Rose is like, oh, thanks heaven. I'm so glad you're alive. And she like, grabs his hand. She's like, your unwavering effort and love have produced a miracle. I accept all your feelings for me. You gave me life. Now I will give you my heart. So, yeah, Cid has won the affection of a new princess. And we cut to the present moment where Cid's in a train and Princess Rose is there and she's like cuddling him, and Cid's just like bored, and he's like, I need my space. And yeah, he explains that the princess has spot him when they were getting on the train, like, so now she is riding the entire time with him instead of in her own room. He's like, man, I just wanted some rest and to relax. Like, I could have immediately gone to the city in full sprint. Like, I could have just waited till nightfall, sprinted there, and be there like by morning. But instead, I decided to take the economy class because I wanted to play the role of a mob character. But Princess Rose found me, and she said she's going to the Sacred Land as well. So now we got to go together because she won't take no for an answer. And Cid is just thinking of like excuses to get rid of her. Princess Rose basically starts planning a future with them. She says, I assume you're going for the goddess's trial, right? And he's like, yeah, probably. That's what Alpha wanted. He doesn't say the Alpha part out loud, but that's why he's going. And Princess Rose like, I know you're very brave. I think you're going to be good. Our path together will be a thorny one because I'm a princess and you're a lonely commoner. People won't give our blessings, but there's a religion that basically they worships the sacreds of the goddesses. Like the goddess granted the legendary heroes her powers. They built up wealth from humble beginnings and married the princesses of their great kingdoms. And so if you're able to fight in this trial, this tournament, and do good, then maybe like people will be okay with a commoner like you marrying a princess like me. And as she's like fantasizing about this, Cid's able to get his hand out, and he starts thinking about the trials and the whole backstory behind it and stuff. And then, of course, Princess Rose comes up behind him, grabs his hand again, and talks about how their love will get through anything, and we can't speak of this to anyone. All we can do is hope for a bright and happy future together. Yeah, once again, she kind of gets in front of Cid and kind of hogs his space, and once again Cid's like, I'm gonna want my space. And we have a moment where it's nighttime and Princess Rose sneaks into Cid's room because she wants to sleep with him, and Cid is once again clinging to the ceiling, hiding from her like he did from his sister, only this time he's actually sleeping. So it's hilarious. He has like his little nightcap on and he's just sleeping while clinging to the ceiling. So yeah, he's basically trying to get away from this princess. And then we cut to the next day where they're at the city, and he's traveling with the princess. They're going shopping together. Like, he still hasn't been able to completely cut her loose. And as they're walking, they see a long line, and it's Natsumi, the world's greatest author. She writes every single genre. She's great at world building. Her stories are so diverse. It's almost like they were written by different people. And Cid's like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting. It's almost like she kind of covers everything. And he starts reading the collection. Like, he sees a whole collection of what Natsumi was writing. And it's puns. It's Star, it's a Trap Wars, which is Star Wars. One Purse, which is One Piece. Dragon Bull, which is Dragon Ball. Romeo and Juliet, which is obviously Romeo and Juliet. Little Crimson Riding Hood, which is Little Red Riding Hood. He even starts reading The Eminence in Shadow. Like, he's about to read The Eminence and then he stops. He's like, oh, I can't read that. So yeah, he's like, this has got to be someone from a reincarnated world, because this is all basically bootleg bullshit from my world. Like, this person didn't come up with any of these stories on their own. So he goes and he sees that it's Beta. Yeah, Beta is the famous author, and we basically get a flashback where he was teaching Beta. He was giving her all of these stories. And first, it was supposed to be like wisdom. He was giving her wisdom. He was telling her stories about, like, from this past life, because she loves literature. And he was hoping that she can use the inspiration to write a cool story, like a cool story about him and stuff. I do like how, as we have this flashback, we see Epsilon in the background upset watching the two of them, like, peeking through the window. So we get like the beginnings of the Epsilon Beta feud, because when we saw Cid teaching Epsilon, Beta was peeking in through the window. And now that we see Cid teaching Beta, we see Epsilon peeking through the window. I thought that was a little nice touch. But yeah, Cid basically was just telling her these stories because he knows that she likes literature, and he was hoping that he can, like, encourage her to write, like, adventures of him. Obviously not his name, but of, like, his shadow persona and stuff. But instead, she used the stories that he told her to write books based off those stories, and then made a bunch of money. So now Cid, of course, is pissed off because he's like, she's making a name and success off of my work. Then we cut to Alpha, and Alpha is checking out this sanctuary where the Archbishop has been brutally murdered, and she doesn't know who is the culprit. Some guards show up and they see her walking away, so they assume that she's a murderer and they try to apprehend her, but she's able to make her escape. We see Cid. He's watching the city below, eating ice cream, and he sees a figure running across the rooftops, and he confronts the figure, and the figure goes to attack him when Cid deflects his sword strike with his little wooden spoon that he was using to eat ice cream. And then these 3 slashes of magic come and cut the henchman in half. It turns out that, yeah, I say henchman because it turns out this guy was working for the assassin who assassinated the Archbishop, but he's not the culprit himself. The culprit himself is still on the loose. They don't know who it is. But Epsilon shows up, and she's the one who cut down this figure, and she's the one that tells Cid, like, hey, yeah, he was working with the assassin. We were able to get some of the henchmen, but the assassin has made his escape. We still don't know who it is. And as she's talking to Cid, her boobs keep bouncing. So we get fan service with that. And as he's walking away, Cid says, Epsilon is a very proud woman. I can tell by the amount of slime she's piled onto herself. So, yeah, the slime suit isn't able to fool Cid. And that's how it ends. So, yeah, I enjoy this episode a lot. This is the kind of episode that I want from Eminence and Shadow. I want the comedy stuff. Don't get me wrong. The seriousness, I like the serious stuff too. I obviously just prefer the comedy because when it comes to Eminence and Shadow, that's its biggest selling point to me. But I completely understand why the previous episode had to be serious. I even said in that video, the review I did for that it had to be serious because if they had comedy in that episode, it would have just really undercut a lot of the drama, and the dramatic moments wouldn't have impacted as hard as they did. But with that said, it's nice to get just almost a full-on, straight-up comedy episode with a ton of fan service. Like, holy cow, there's so much fan service in this. Like I say, you just get the gamut of things. You get crotch shot of Delta sleeping. You get Epsilon completely naked, putting on the slime suits, making her butt and boobs look bigger. You get Beta riding in just her underwears. You get Epsilon and Beta having a boob contest. You have Nu showing up and you have a close-up shot of her butts. You have Alexia shopping for a thong. And then you get just a weird incestual Kebidon moment with her and Iris. You get Gamma showing off her thong off screen. It's a shame it was off screen. You get Epsilon's boobs bouncing constantly as she's talking to Cid. So yeah, just a ton of fan service. So if that's your thing, this is your episode. But yeah, I enjoyed the episode. I loved it. I loved the comedy, the humor. Cid winning another woman into his harem, his unwanted harem. Just Cid constantly trying to do everything he can to get away from these women. He's trying to get away from this Brocon sister from clinging to the ceiling like Spider-Man. He tries to get away from this princess sleeping with him by clinging to the ceiling like Spider-Man. As she's holding his hand, he's constantly trying to get it out of her hold and get his own, he wants her out of his personal space. It's just Cid's winning women left and right, and that's the last thing he wants. It's just hilarious. But yeah, I'm just kind of rambling at this point. I love this episode. It was great. It was fantastic. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope to see you next time. Take care, everybody. Later.